A woman is facing charges tonight after police say she assaulted her boyfriend. Jerica Thomas is charged with aggravated assault and attempted second-degree murder. According to an affidavit, Thomas told police her boyfriend assaulted her. A witness told police Thomas then went looking for the victim and found him walking in a field. That's when she allegedly ran him over with her car. The affidavit goes on to say Thomas then got out of the car and started hitting the victim with sticks. She then put the victim in her trunk and drove him to the hospital. Thomas was given a $100,000 bond. She's due in court tomorrow for a bond hearing.
Hello and welcome back to Nikki Scoops. For all the true crime enthusiasts out there, remember to hit the subscribe button as I upload new videos thrice a week. Now that we've covered that, let's dive in. Our first story takes us to Memphis, Tennessee. A woman has been detained with a bond set at $100,000 following allegations that she struck a man with her vehicle and assaulted him with a stick at an apartment complex in Raleigh this past Sunday. Officers say they were called to the Lux at Raleigh Apartments on 4173 Truce Drive, where Jerica Thomas made a report stating that her boyfriend assaulted her. A witness told police that after Thomas was assaulted by a man, she went looking for him and found him walking in a field. That is when Thomas allegedly ran him over with the front of her vehicle and then backed up. The witness says she then began hitting him with sticks before helping him up, putting him in the trunk, and taking him to Methodist North Hospital. Police say the man was airlifted to Regional 1 Hospital, suffering from a broken pelvis, lacerated liver, and spinal fracture. Thomas was arrested at her home and brought to the Family Safety Center. Jerica Thomas is charged with aggravated assault and criminal attempt second-degree murder. If convicted, she could face up to 45 years in jail. She is due back in court on Wednesday morning. So, if someone assaults you, are you not allowed to protect yourself? I mean, if this was me, I would for sure do the same thing. Yes, I will probably be acting out of extreme anger as well, but at the end of the day, it's either going to be me or you, and I can tell you this, it will not be me. I can see where she went too far, but at the same time, you gotta do what you gotta do. Comment below and tell me your thoughts. Do you think it's justifiable considering he initiated it, or maybe she should have turned the other cheek? The next destination is Polk County, Florida. This case is particularly distressing because it seems it could have been prevented. The idea that a failure to perform one's duties resulted in death is deeply troubling. Allegedly, a Florida health aide's indifference resulted in the death of an elderly man. After discovering him distressed on the floor, she reportedly left him there, and hours later she indifferently commented, "He was old anyway, so what does it matter?" as per the authorities' reports. Beatrice Taylor, age 25, served as a health aide and was assigned to assist an 86-year-old man at his home, according to authorities. The Polk County Sheriff's Office reported that the victim's family arranged for continuous care from the facility, consisting of two 12-hour shifts covering both day and night. The 86-year-old, who had been hospitalized recently, was diagnosed with congestive heart failure while under hospice care since August. During Beatrice's 12-hour shift, starting at 9 p.m., she was instructed to call 911 immediately if an emergency arose. Beatrice Taylor, an employee of Assisting Hands Home Health Care, began her overnight shift at Edward Anderson's Winter Haven residence on the evening of August 15th. Upon her arrival, the day shift aide informed her that Mr. Anderson and his wife were prepared for bed, though they had not yet fallen asleep. Company policy prohibits employees from sleeping during their shift. Nonetheless, investigators claim that Taylor dozed off on a living room couch soon after her arrival. She was awakened around 1 a.m. by a thump emanating from the victim's bedroom. Upon entering the bedroom, she found the victim on the floor, lying on his right side with his head stuck between the nightstand and the bed. Taylor informed the detectives that she tried to assist him back into bed, but he refused her help, asking not to be touched. Consequently, she left him on the floor without calling 911 or notifying her employer. Instead, she simply returned to sleep, the deputies claim. It is alleged that Taylor did not awaken until sometime between 3:45 a.m. and 4:53 a.m. According to deputies, she did not check on the man immediately, but instead spoke with her parents on the phone for almost 40 minutes. While she was on the phone, she eventually went to check on the man, who was still lying on the floor, now unconscious. She called 911 at around 5:37 a.m. Taylor maintained to the detectives that she was innocent, asserting, "I didn't kill that man." Allegedly, a paramedic overheard her on a call remarking, "He was old anyway, so what does it matter?" Deputies report that Taylor, an employee of the company for approximately 8 months, was terminated after failing to appear for work subsequent to the incident. Assisting Hands has issued the following statement. Assisting Hands Home Care of Polk County was deeply saddened to hear about the death of an individual who is a member of our community, and our sincere condolences are extended to that individual's family. However, given state and federal privacy protections for our clients and their families, we cannot comment on any current or former clients without their permission. That said, we work very hard to train our caregivers to ensure they have all the skills and certifications required to care for all of our clients. Ms. Beatrice Taylor, who was a member of our care team, was no exception, and she had received all required training according to state regulations. Assisting Hands Home Care of Polk County continually reviews and evaluates its training programs and policies to prioritize the best quality of care for its valued clients, just as we prioritize their privacy. An autopsy revealed that the patient had a pacemaker implanted. Subsequently, the manufacturer retrieved data from the device, which provided cardiac information stored on the pacemaker. This data confirmed that the individual was still alive at 1 a.m., the time they were initially discovered by Taylor lying on the floor. A paramedic who responded to the emergency involving Taylor overheard her saying on the phone, "He was old anyway, so what does it matter?" Subsequently, she has been charged with aggravated manslaughter of an elderly person. Attempts to contact Taylor's attorney for a statement were unsuccessful. She was detained in the Polk County Jail on Thursday, facing a charge of aggravated manslaughter of an elderly person, and is being held without bond.
A 14-year-old girl is officially being charged with manslaughter as an adult for the beating death of her grandmother. The teenager, who we are not identifying because of her age, moved from Ukraine last year. Prosecutors say she attacked her 79-year-old grandmother in their apartment back in May. Investigators say the girl has been dealing with behavioral issues since witnessing the war in Ukraine and being separated from her mother. If found guilty, she faces up to 15 years in prison.
Next, we're heading to Lauderdale Lakes, Florida. This case captured my attention because I was astounded by what I had read. I believe I had to read the headline about 3 times. What do you mean she was going to die anyway? The audacity of someone to decide another person's fate, especially when that person is your own grandmother, is shocking. Wow, it's just so crazy. All right, let's delve into this story. A 14-year-old Ukrainian girl who has recently relocated to Florida faces adult charges in the severe beating death of her 79-year-old grandmother. On May 23rd, deputies arrived at a crime scene and discovered an unresponsive grandmother in her Lauderdale Lakes, Florida apartment. Her belt and walker, which are both believed to have been used in the killing, were found nearby, according to an arrest affidavit. The victim, who was pronounced dead at the hospital, suffered head trauma, extensive bruising and internal bleeding, an autopsy revealed. She also had contusions of the scalp, hemorrhaging on the scalp, and bleeding in her brain. Her 14-year-old granddaughter was charged with beating her to death in their Broward apartment. On the day of the killing, he took his daughter's cell phone from her as punishment and left her alone with her grandmother. Upon his return home after midnight, he found the woman unresponsive. Inquiring about the incident, his daughter explained that her grandmother had scratched her. The document stated, "As a result, she was forced to defend herself." It continued, Sofia Koval informed her father that she had hit the victim multiple times with a belt. Overcome with emotion, Sofia Koval began to cry and expressed her remorse for her actions. The teen later told investigators through a Ukrainian translator that her grandmother was already dying and that she helped her die, the affidavit said. She allegedly confessed to hitting her multiple times with a belt. Due to her remarks while in custody and her occasionally agitated and aggressive demeanor, she was transported to a hospital for a behavioral health assessment. On Tuesday, prosecutors charged her with adult manslaughter. According to jail records, the teenager, whose identity is withheld because of her age, is detained at the North Broward Bureau, an adult institution in Pompano Beach. Given the egregious nature of the crime and after reviewing all that the defense has presented, I find it fitting for this case to be adjudicated in adult court, State Attorney Harold F. Pryor stated on Wednesday. Her death was determined to be a homicide, with an autopsy showing brain hemorrhage. Yevgenia Koval's son, who is also the teenager's father, stated that his daughter had relocated from Ukraine 8 months prior to the incident. Police reports indicate that the teenager had been displaying behavioral problems following her exposure to the war in Ukraine and the subsequent separation from her mother. If she is found guilty, she could face up to 15 years in prison. However, the state attorney's office has noted that due to her age, she may receive juvenile sanctions instead. We are exploring all possibilities and collaborating with her attorneys at the Broward Public Defender's Office to devise a suitable resolution that holds her accountable, while also considering her age and the circumstances surrounding this offense, stated Pryor. Additionally, she is at risk of deportation. The girl's father informed investigators that she had not received a mental health diagnosis, despite exhibiting aggressive behavior. He also mentioned that she hadn't been eating or sleeping. If she is found guilty, she could face a prison sentence of up to 15 years. The state attorney's office indicates that due to her age, she may receive juvenile sanctions.
On South Linwood Avenue was described by police as deplorable and uninhabitable.
Steve Mailing spoke with neighbors and police today about the case and the disturbing scenes of what was going on just next door.
Well, Randy, Brianne, if you spoke with the neighbors of those arrested, you'd think the home here on Evansville's south side was just like any other. The situation, however, was anything but. We do want to warn you, you may find some of the details in this story to be disturbing.
They're good people.
They have always been nice. They have always been cool. I've always seen her take care of that baby.
If you spoke to people living on South Linwood Avenue, they would tell you their neighbors were good people. That's because they had no reason to believe otherwise.
They take good care of their kids. I'm always seeing them loading food in the house.
But everything was not as it seemed.
People can put up a front, or maybe you just don't know them well enough, or behind closed doors there's things going on.
And there were. Police made their way out to the home on South Linwood for a medic run.
The only reason why we even knew about it was because the dad woke up and the baby was covered in blood, and that was our first involvement. We should have been involved. Someone should have picked up the phone and called us prior to that.
Inside of the home, police say, were deplorable conditions. An affidavit cited feces on the floor, rats in the home, and trash scattered about. That affidavit was for 3 people arrested in connection to the severe neglect of a 6-month-old. Parents David and Angel Schaunebaum and Delana Thurman, Angel's sister.
Did you hear how severe the injuries were to the 6-month-old?
No.
Police believe that a rat mice bit the skin off of the fingers of the child.
Oh my God.
The child almost actually died. Was rushed to Riley's Children in Indy.
I didn't know about the fingers. She told me that his face was disfigured.
Yeah, they believe that he was bitten a little over 50 times.
Oh my God.
Neighbor Teresa Favors didn't know how bad it was until we spoke with her.
How does a child get bit over 50 times and nobody knows that the child is bit?
Would you have ever suspected something like that to happen here?
No.
In the affidavit, police say the family was already under investigation by the Department of Child Services. The last home visit, September 9th. That was from a home-based therapy company called Maglinger Home Services. We reached out to the DCS to attempt to understand how the situation could have gone on for months. They told us they couldn't comment on the case. EPD Sergeant Anna Gray says it's one of the worst child neglect cases she's seen in her decades on the force.
It's really hard to see that, and it's really hard sometimes to just maintain composure and be professional.
As for the accused, they face multiple charges of child neglect, a case so bad it nearly killed a baby who couldn't defend itself.
Any forms of neglect, no, none shown, none of that. I've never seen it. 50 times.
Well, the other 4 children in the home have been placed in another home. We will be staying on top of this case as it continues to unfold, and we'll update you each step of the way.
Our next destination is Evansville, Indiana. Please be advised that this case is quite unsettling. For those who may be sensitive to such content, it might be best to bypass this segment. If you're prepared, let's delve into the story. An Indiana father will serve a lengthy prison sentence after his infant was found in a horrific state, nearly devoured by rats and severely disfigured. The 6-month-old was discovered in a blood-soaked bassinet, suffering from over 50 rat bites across his body, face, and limbs, with his small fingers chewed to the bone. This gruesome discovery was made by Evansville police on September 13, 2023, as reported by the Vanderburgh County Prosecutor's Office. Prosecutors said the infant nearly died from blood loss and is now permanently disfigured. David Schaunebaum, 32, received a 16-year prison sentence on Wednesday following his conviction last month on 3 felony charges of child neglect and endangerment. This case is appalling, and the images of this infant will stay with us indefinitely, stated Prosecutor Diana Mowers in a press release. The infant resided in a veritable house of horrors, accompanied by his siblings and a pet dog. Police apprehended Schaunebaum, his 29-year-old wife Angel Renee Schaunebaum, and her sister Delania Thurman, following a 911 call from the father reporting that his infant son was found covered in blood and severely injured by rats at their home. The child was airlifted to an Indianapolis hospital where he received treatment and a blood transfusion after his body temperature fell to 93.5 degrees and his blood pressure measured at 50/30. Authorities said the infant suffered the most traumatic injuries to his right hand, with each finger and thumb missing flesh, exposing bone on all 5 fingertips. Most severe were the index and pinky fingers, which police said were missing the flesh halfway down each finger. The child also suffered additional bites to his arms, legs, feet, and toes. At the home, police said the baby's bassinet was about 3 feet away from the bed where his parents slept in a room that was covered with clutter, half-eaten food, bugs, and rat feces, prosecutors said. The detective said he observed a large amount of blood inside the bassinet, along with a boppy pillow and blanket that were both covered in blood. The diaper disposal container also had blood smeared all over it and what appeared to be rodent footprints left in the blood, the affidavit states. When asked how they could possibly allow such horrors to be inflicted on a baby, The adults said they did not hear the child cry, according to Gray. The family's home on South Linwood Avenue, where the boy's 3- and 6-year-old siblings and 2- and 5-year-old cousins also lived, was in deplorable condition. But the rats' mauling of the baby was not the first time the vermin targeted children at the residence. Prosecutors reported that 3 children in the home had been bitten by rats during their sleep before the Indiana Department of Child Services intervened to address safety concerns preceding the tragic mauling of the baby. Prosecutors stated that the baby's father neglected to resolve issues critical for ensuring a safe living environment for the children. The fact that someone would reside in such conditions is utterly appalling, let alone subject their children, an infant, and animals to live amid such squalor when they are unable to fend for themselves, Moores expressed. It is also unimaginable how a rat was able to do such damage to this infant before his father called for help. The child's mother entered a guilty plea to felony neglect charges last week and is scheduled for sentencing on October 24th. The boy's aunt, Delana Thurman, has also entered a plea in the case. Thurman was given a 2-year suspended prison sentence, according to records. The final stop is Wapakoneta, Ohio. We're passing through to recount the story of an ambush that led to the murder of a beloved father. Let's get right to it. A mother has been sentenced to 40 years in prison for ambushing and injecting her estranged ex-husband with a lethal dose of poison following the return of their children to her residence. Amanda Hovanek, 37, from Wapakoneta, Ohio, entered a guilty plea for the murder of Timothy Hovanek before a district judge on Tuesday. Investigators obtained dash cam footage from the victim's car, which captured her wrestling him to the ground. Subsequently, she injected him in the shoulder with M99, an anesthetic utilized for rhinos and other zoo animals, with a potency up to 3,000 times that of morphine. The 36-year-old father of 3, employed as a researcher for the U.S. State Department, was bringing back his children after a weekend visit on the evening of April 24th, as disclosed by court documents. Timothy's employment required them to reside in South Africa from 2018 to 2020, during which Hovanek had an affair with Safa Anthony Theodoro. The couple divorced soon after returning to the U.S. in 2020. At around 7 p.m., Hovanek and her mother, Anita Green, were waiting by the garage outside their residence when the father arrived in the driveway, according to what the court heard. Prosecutors stated that the mother approached the car and said to her children, "I have a surprise for you inside." As Green guided the children indoors, Hovanek pounced on her ex-husband in the driveway as he was removing the children's car seats. A sentencing brief detailed, "What the heck are you doing? Did you just assault me?" Timothy's voice was heard exclaiming in an audio recording captured by the car's dash cam, which was submitted to investigators. "Get away from me. Get off of me." Hovanek was then seen pulling at her ex-husband's shirt and grappling with him while he attempted to retrieve his cell phone, according to officials. Taking him to the ground, she held the victim by the neck until his body went limp and he lost consciousness, prosecutors said. After seizing his phone and smartwatch, Hovanek turned off the vehicle's engine, which also deactivated the dash cam, according to prosecutors. She placed a plastic bag over the victim's head and body, fearing fluids secreting from his remains, according to court documents. Hovanek disclosed to investigators that she had injected her former partner in the shoulder with M99, a substance she knew would be lethal within minutes, according to the prosecutors. Additionally, she confessed to obtaining the poison from a source she identified as Theodoro. The lover, who was in Ohio at the time of the murder, not only allegedly provided the M99, but also confessed to digging a shallow grave the day before Timothy's death. On April 25th, Green took them to the burial site on a farm previously owned by the defendant's grandfather, as stated in a probable cause affidavit. U.S. Attorney Rebecca Lutzko for the Northern District of Ohio described Hovanek's actions as cold-blooded, calculated, and cruel in a statement released on Tuesday. She emphasized the extreme malevolence Hovanek harbored towards her husband and her utter disregard for the impact his murder would have on their innocent children, deeming it incomprehensible and unforgivable. We understand that no sentence can ever replace a family's lost loved one. However, we hope that the victim's family can find some measure of closure as they diligently strive to recover from this unspeakable and terrible tragedy, Rebecca Lutzko stated. Green, the mother of the defendant, admitted to being an accessory after the fact to the crimes perpetrated by Hovanek and Theodoro. She received a 10-year prison sentence with an additional 2 years of supervised release. Additionally, she was mandated to pay restitution amounting to $2,108,559. Hovanek's lover, Theodoro, is scheduled to be sentenced next week. Thank you for watching until the end of my video. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons to stay updated. I can't wait to see you in the next one.